All right. Today we have some really great presenters. Yeah, we have some great projects that are happening. You know, this sort of. Did anybody see the Electric Vehicle Association of America's report on how many electric vehicles there really are in the United States? It's a really interesting report. How many are there? And what I thought was most interesting was that practically all of them are in California. It's like the next state down. It's like fourfold. We have like 4 times as many here.
California, we admit when we don't need.
That's.
You know, that's not really funny. We sold a rabbit kit to a guy somewhere back in Michigan or somewhere back in there, and he says, "Don't bother to send me the graphics kit that goes on the side of the car that says electric." He says, "Because anything in this neighborhood is different, it's trash."
Yeah.
So he had this. He just had this.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
right. What I thought was interesting too, reading the report, because I was really wondering, it's like, how were they doing the counting? You know, who were they talking to? Because I know an awful lot of people that do not register their electrics as electrics. It's an insurance problem, you know, or they're perceived. They have a perception that it's going to be a difficult process, and of course, the only people that really know are the inspectors down at the DMV, whether your car is electric or not. And, you know, because they take their little probe and they're trying to find out where there's emissions and stuff like that. And I was telling somebody the story yesterday that somebody related an experience where the inspector was walking around trying to find a place, you know, to put the probe to check, to do the smog check, to do this smog check. And of course there wasn't, you know, I had him open up the trunk, the hood, you know, looking under the seats, trying to find some place that something was emitting something. And then had to drive the vehicle around the parking lot and come back in, and then was out there with the probe, you know, and it's like, it was like, where are the cameras when you really need them, you know?
Yeah.
It's like they just couldn't quite get it.
Michael, did you hear about the guy who was trying to get a city car on the road? They wouldn't give him a smog thing because there wasn't any tailpipe. Because there wasn't any tailpipe, they couldn't do the test. Because they couldn't do the test, they couldn't license the car.
So how many EVs are there?
Yeah, I think the estimate is like 2,800 or something like that and they weren't counting off-road, they weren't weren't dealing with golf carts, they weren't dealing with anything that size. It was freeway or highway legal, basically, is what they were going, and they came up with numbers. It's a pretty good study.
They came up with 2,800, 2,985 or something like
yeah.
that. In California, though.
Yeah, but that's I think that's including, the EVAA was very specific about what it included and what it didn't include and stuff. But the breakdown was very interesting, and I highly recommend you call them up and get the, I actually have it with me, where's it? But anyway, so anybody that's interested in that afterwards, I'll give you the number. We should all call and they'll feel really important. Wow, all these people are interested in oh, you know, I don't,
for tax purposes.
I don't have, oh yeah, I do too. Here it is. It's called the Market Brief, EVAA, Market Brief. And also, the hobbyists are the largest group. Converted and what they call upfitted vehicles are 906. Hobbyist vehicles, they're not quite sure, something between 529 and 695. And then buses, 63. Pre-1990 EVs, 390. OEM vehicles is one of the lowest, 190. So original equipment manufacturers. So they had some great statistics. But here, the one I liked was California has 587 of these, and then the next state that has a lot is Arizona, 158. And then Michigan is 151, New York is 64, Massachusetts is 57, probably all selected vehicles.
Those
Washington.
The first numbers you read us were national numbers.
Yes, in the United States.
How many in Washington?
I think it's higher.
Well, these are the licensed, known EVs that they were able to actually track down, which I thought was great.
How many in Washington? I'm just curious as to what we said.
I mean, I want that back. That better get back to me. So make sure you know the name of the person you hand it to if you pass it around.
So it's
But there's a phone
There,
number.
I've got a copy of it.
What's the phone number?
Let me give you the.
Yeah.
Look at the phone number on the Michael. Look at the phone number on the front sheet there, and tell where they can call. It's down near the bottom.
There's California.
415-419-249-2690. And that's the EVAA, and just asking you want their latest market brief on how many electrics are in the United States. That's what you're asking for. And they'll probably send you a copy, because that's what they do. Maryland has one. Right.
David Goldstein's.
Louisiana has one. Oh, you know, the other thing we all need to do, everybody's got to do this. They got to find the name of a rental car agency. You got to do this within the next week. I think we ought to really get these people, light a fire under these people. You got to call a rental car agency, tell them you're visiting a certain town. It could be in the town that you're in. I'm going to be visiting your city. I want to rent a car. What do you have in the way of an electric? And if they get 10 calls, you know, Hertz gets 10 calls, I think somebody at Hertz is going to say, we got to check this out. Where are these people? Why are these people asking for electrics? And then make the comment that you can rent electrics in Switzerland. You know, this is America. Shouldn't we be able to rent electrics here? So ask for an electric. Ask for, you have an electric Cadillac, you know.
Use a Swiss accent.
Whatever.
Just keep saying, yeah.
Yeah, I have the Swiss accent. Disguise your voice.
Michael, has anybody tried DC? I know Phoenix chapter has.
I don't know.
My previous students are working at
Okay, oh, now we're going to get serious. Okay, the chit chat is over. We've had our little coffee hour, and now we're going to get into some serious presentations. Bill is here from Fairbairn. Fairbairn. Okay, he's here from one of these Air Force bases in California that's going to get whopped, you know, with the cutback and stuff. And they're doing stuff with electric vehicles, and they're real close to SMUD. I don't know where Sacramento Municipal Utility District ever came up with this acronym, SMUD.
Well, it's better than the South Coast Air Base and SCAD.
No, that fits. That fits. But if you want to have a really, I don't know. Yeah. We have Ruth MacDougall from SMUD, who's going to be talking about their program, and I give that utility the credit for having, I think it's probably the most EVs in the United States, and maybe other places too. Anyway, some of our own kind of people in there, you know, doing this stuff, getting electrics into the real world. And then we had two other speakers, one whom bailed, I guess, and left, and the other one may be replaced. So we're going to have Bob Martinez from BAT talking for a few moments, and then there was somebody else. We didn't put that together yet. Okay, so anyway.
Hey, I'd love to hear that. I get to see you once a year.
And a big part of this whole thing is just bringing everybody up to speed on who's doing what, and of course we're all just, you know, this is where I get all my nurturing, you know, in the field, because you go back out in the real world and most people are saying, I've heard about electric vehicles, yeah.
The thing of the future.
And yeah.
What about those things
Get out your checkbook here now.
It's kind of nice to get into the snake pit with all the other people that are doing electrics. And, what? I'm staying really low key about what I'm doing. Right. I'm not telling anything. Right. Actually, I will mention what I'm doing. That's only because I love to talk. You know.
You're not on the program, Michael.
What? Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll think about.
In the hall.
That was a lazy toss. Actually, a few of you know that last year I wrote a book on electric vehicles, and and finished it last October. And I'm up at Home Power up at Agate Flats, an hour and a half from Ashland, way out in the boonies.
Your name for the cameras?
Oh, Michael Hackleman. And what I'm doing is doing the layout for that book. And it's going to be, I think I'll have the distinction to have the first electric vehicle book out that's got pictures that are in color. So, lots of color in the book. And I get faxed and phoned and written to a lot about all of the terrible things that are being said in newspapers everywhere about electric vehicles, all the kind of bashing that's going on. And to me, I'm not really bothered by that. I think it's wonderful that we've reached the point where we're making enough trouble that they're noticing us. This is just a natural evolutionary thing. This is, you know, Mike was referring to that yesterday. There's a certain amount, and other people have too, there's a certain amount of that that's going to go on. All of these people haven't got a clue of what they're talking about. Because if you haven't had your ass in an electric vehicle, you don't know what you're talking about. That's bottom line. Everybody who's been in an electric vehicle knows that. Everybody who hasn't doesn't. And it's real clear. And it's real hard to watch. It's hard to watch people starting getting interested in electrics and start talking about electrics, whether they're saying they won't work or they will work. It's interesting to see the people that love to talk about that and haven't got a clue what they're talking about. So the inexperience is really showing. And I think it's just a phase that we're going to go through. There's a lot of fear. I mean, most people who drive electric vehicles, my car's never been in the shop. It needs to go in the shop. The brakes are really bad. But I've been holding out for regen. But I just haven't been driving it, you know. But other than that, the car has not been in the shop. There's no money to be made in electrics. There's not money to be made in electrics the way there is in gas-powered cars. So the whole economy is going to go through this real interesting little gyration, I think, in the air, a little flip in the air, as we come up to speed with this. But I think the writing's on the wall. I definitely have that feeling. And that's a good feeling to have, because I haven't had that feeling for a long time. I built my first electric about 20 years ago. Anyway, so the book is going to be out soon, and then I'm going to retire. I'm not doing electrics anymore. Because electrics don't work. But it occurred to me last night that we should just say it right here. Electrics don't work. Let's all go home. Go get jobs. Go get real jobs. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's the component that nobody quite has figured out with electric stuff. They're very fun. Aren't they fun? Yeah. They're fun. Aren't they fun? They're fun, yeah. Right.
General Motors, as a matter of fact, copyrighted good, clean fun. It's electric. They copyrighted it. Bad Bob Stempel gave it in his Nessie talk, and it was copyrighted.
I believe it.
We were going through the copyrights for something and saw that.
Yeah, I believe it.
Good, clean fun is electric.
Yeah. So, anyway, let's bring you up to date a little bit more on what's going on in California here, which is one of the hotbeds. And so let's we'll get Bill up here first, and then it'll be Ruth, and then Bob, and we're still trying to figure out if we'll have somebody from PG&E. I don't know. It doesn't look good. Is their car still here?
Yes, the Honda's out there.
The Honda's out there.
Shonda's here, but she doesn't want to talk.
Sean doesn't want to talk?
Yeah, that's...
Really?
She's shy.
She's what?
She's shy is the issue.
Shy, right.
Afraid of hostile audience.
Well,
She's been showing the car out there.
yeah, right. Okay. So let's start off with Ruth. I mean, Bill. Okay. Now you can get wired.
You're going to see a lot of real slick presentations today, overheads and slides. And being in the Air Force with all the budget cuts, I'm stuck with this. Can't afford the slides and stuff. I'd like to thank the staff that has put the event together today, and the volunteers, and I would like to give them a big round of applause. We've learned a lot, and that's part of the reason for an event like this, is you pick up so much from all the different participants. I'd like to share 2 experiences that I really learned this weekend that I think can really relate. Friday we had the Ride and Drive in San Francisco, kind of a media event before we came up here. And we drove across the Golden Gate Bridge to the north end. And we had TV and newspaper and radio was there. And we parked our trailer down at the Presidio, which is back in San Francisco. So we got done with all the photo shoots and such, and we were chasing the selector event. We weren't quite sure what exits to take. So we're following this car, and they took off. They were just hauling down. So we're in our little green pickup out there, same thing. And when you go on the Golden Gate from the north, you come under the bridge and up around and down a hill, and the bridge comes up. Well, I'm riding regen down the hill a little bit, and we get on the bridge, and it starts to go up, and I step on the accelerator, nothing. Nothing at all. And Ron Coombs, who's in the back, was with me, and I said, Ron, I think we have a problem here. He says, no, come on. Well, I kept hitting it, and nothing. So it's about 10:30 in the morning, the traffic's still pretty thick, going fast, and we go from 45 or 50 miles an hour down to 30 to 20 to 10 to 0. We're at the first tower at the bridge, and our biggest fear is that the media was going to come by. You know, they love that kind of stuff.
It's here right now.
Well,
take that guy's film.
There's on the bridge, there's a really high, like a curb. You cannot, we couldn't push the car out, so the traffic's backed up behind us. We thought, well, we'll get out, we'll push the car to the top of the hill, we can coast down. Well, we got out, these maintenance guys said, get back in the car, you're going to get ran over. And they were right, because I put my foot out there at like 60 miles an hour. But we learned all kinds of new words. The drivers in San Francisco are not very courteous. We were called, well, some new names. I won't repeat them. So the moral of that, I was like, and what happened? There's a little connector on the back that if that's not in, the circuit's not complete, no power. Well, it had been hooked in, but there's a little lock for it. And the lock wasn't down. So after we hit a few bumps, it fell off. And after 10 minutes of panic and didn't know if we should jump off the bridge, Ron got that figured out. So always make sure your connectors and batteries and everything are good, because it's very embarrassing. I'll tell you that. So that's how our morning started. Then we went down to the trailer. We got the car back down to the Presidio, and we proceeded to load the car up on the trailer, and the truck fell through the wood. Crashed right through, and so we had just a great day. So another lesson of that is that 2 of those trees that Steve McRae had planted for us, we're going to cut them down and fix that trailer. So anyway, I'm from McClellan Air Force Base, which is in Sacramento, and we are in Sacramento. We're right on a main street. The city and town, we're in the north part, has grown up around us, and we're about 5,400 acres. We're an industrial complex, and there's a road that goes around the base, and it's roughly 10 miles, and it's all enclosed. A big fence around us. We're a base, and we have over 500 gas and diesel powered vehicles there in our light and heavy duty fleet. And the vehicles run about 2 million miles a year, so there's definite room for us to make improvements there. And the electric vehicles in McClellan are not new. For over 15 years they've put forklifts and burden carriers and little pallet trucks and trams. So it's, as we drive around the base, we see signs once in a while. They're all faded out, but it's like electric vehicle charging station. And so the infrastructure, some of that was there. It's had to be upgraded, but it's kind of neat to see that. It's old, but it's worked. So EVs are not a new, scary issue to the people at the base. We were basically formed in 1992 from, we're congressionally designated as a Department of Defense test and demonstration program with a partnership with SMUD. And one of the first lessons when I got to this job about 2.5 years ago, Congressman Vic Fazio, our representative there in Sacramento, and David Freeman was the head guy at SMUD. Well, it turned out that Freeman's wife was Fazio's aide. And I thought, you know, I've got money come together. And so that was one of my first lessons in politics in this business. And of course, I'm sure that didn't really do it. We received our first vehicles in April of '93. We got 2 G-Vans. And what an exciting day, because we're the electric vehicle program for 6 months, no vehicles. And we would borrow vehicles from SMUD before they ended to test and get the base involved. And I can remember that like it was yesterday, because it was just such a big deal. And today we have about 60 vehicles at the base. We're pretty sure we're the largest actual working fleet in the world. We don't baby our vehicles. We put them out to these Air Force animals, and if you ever need a good, if you want to make sure if an EV will stand up to anything, bring it to the base, and they'll put it through its paces. In September of 1993, McClellan and SMUD formed a partnership to share expertise, experience, and resources. And the good thing there is we both have our niches that we're good at, and you combine that, and I think we can really help this industry. We're also involved in technology transfer, and that is taking military experience and equipment, and the big curtain of some of the secret things that the base has done over the years. We can open that curtain and transfer that to the civilian industry, and hopefully we can bring on small industries, which I'll get to in a little bit, like electric vehicle industries or natural gas or whatever, some alternative fuel. And we've got the infrastructure in place, and we have an experienced workforce that will be looking for a job soon, which I'll get to later. And I guess the bottom line on that is that when 2 big bureaucracies got together, SMUD and McClellan, a lot of people thought, well, nothing will ever get done, but we can take each other's, the best of each path. SMUD can do certain things, great, then we'll go with them. The Air Force can get certain things done, and we can use it, and together we're getting it done. One of the big reasons why McClellan's involved is the Air Force Advanced Composites office is located there. And there are people who do like the stealth fighter parts and our little green pickup out there. And some of these vehicles, we can take that technology and transfer it over to vehicles. A nice carbon overlay, a strong, lightweight body, and it's to me it just makes so much sense as a taxpayer. We need to open up these bases. McClellan can build anything. I've been there 15 years, which I know is great for the military. I haven't been around. And just about every month I'm amazed at the capability that base has. So today, to get us up to date, we've been designated the Air Force Center of Excellence for Electric Vehicles, and that's kind of a honorary title, but it's something you have to earn at the Center of Excellence. And with the 60 vehicles we have everything from the small three-wheeled CDLs up to buses. We have S10 pickups, G-Vans, tugs, and some trams. The Hor lockers are nice, and then we borrow vehicles from SMUD once in a while. We get to drive fun cars like the Impact. And then one of the big things we've done is we've developed the infrastructure. We have over, I think right now we have 54 outlets on base, and we try to make that very user-friendly. We target where the vehicles go based on, first of all, who needs a vehicle, and then to make the infrastructure fairly easy, because if these guys have to hunt for plugs, and we found out if there's any problem that they won't drive the car. And so we try and be very user-friendly, strategically place outlets, and we help what we can. We're at 4 Northern California bases. We're at Travis at Fairfield, McClellan, Sacramento, Lemoore Naval Air Station in Fresno, and then Beale Air Force Base, which is up by Marysville. So our scope is very broad, and some of the bases are great. McClellan, the transportation unit there is, when we first started, electric vehicles won't work. They've done just about everything they can to make sure we fail. And we go to some of these other bases and they eat it up. They cannot wait to get them, and it's real nice. So we support and shape Department of Defense electric vehicle policy and set specifications. As a side note, we haven't received funding in over a year, and there's money it's like the checks in the mail. Well, this is getting real old. This year we're going to convert over 100 vehicles to natural gas, and we're installing a 200 CFM refueling station. So not only the electrics, but different alternative fuels. So besides running a fleet of 60 vehicles, we're involved with ARPA quite heavily. That's the Advanced Research Projects Agency. And just real quick, 4 main projects. One is the freeway-worthy electric vehicle project, which the vehicle like the little green truck out there is the cornerstone of that. It's a purpose-built from the ground up electric vehicle. We would like it to be very cost competitive. And I had some discussions just recently at work. I said, why does McClellan think they can compete against the big 3 or someone like that? And they finally got it through to me that we're going to do this to prove it can be done. We hear all this press that too heavy, too slow, too expensive, whatever. And our goal is to bring this vehicle out at a reasonable price and to show it can be done. We know we can't compete, but at the same time, we know if we can do it, then that's going to open up a lot of doors. It's proof right there. The vehicle will be crash-worthy and lightweight. We get the same thing. We get faxes all the time. And being in the military, it's very hard to pick the phone up and go against. We can do it, but it's not, the military has this little image problem. And if you speak up sometimes, they frown upon that. And it's real frustrating. Another project is a fuel cell hybrid electric vehicle. That'll be the proton exchange membrane, the PEM, and it'll be installed in one of our vehicles within the next 24 months. And at the same time, we'll work on a scalable technology that fuel cell transportation, mobile generation, and remote electric loads. So not just transportation, but other power generation. We're involved in the flywheel battery development and testing, and it's kind of like the battery of the future. It's right around the corner, so we don't know what's, we're on the list to work with that. And the big one is the Department of Defense electric vehicle procurement. Our overall goal is to convert half of the light-duty vehicles in the Department of Defense to electric by the year 2005.
Wow.
That's a lot of vehicles. And but we prove, and this is the main thing I want to leave here today, we prove on a daily basis electrics work. We read all the stuff in the papers, oh, they're not good for this or that. On a daily basis, our vehicles are actually out there working. And like I said, if they can survive on an Air Force base with people who care less, I mean, they run them through their paces.
Look what they do to the jets. You know?
Yeah, you know, it's just so frustrating to hear that, oh, they won't work. But with our buses on a shuttle route, an established route, it runs all day. You can swap battery packs. We've got tugs out on the flat line that haul around the jet engines, like for the big, it's like a 707 size engine. In fact, they can haul 2 or 3 of those at once, so that the power's there. We have the city also, we have 23 of those on base. There's so many back and forth trips, take paperwork, go to a meeting, and the city is perfect for that. And besides the vans, we use, one is a kind of a shuttle right now, and the other one is used for maintenance. I mean, these guys just throw their tools in, and they're out all over base all day. And so we know electrics work. We don't want to hear they don't.
Samsung, what commercial, give the girl, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like Samsung. They jump on them. And, we kind of work with a base in Georgia, Warner Robins, Georgia. They're the Department of Defense. They kind of control the money now. It's kind of a, call it, political deal. They divvy out the money to us when they want to, but we know what we're doing with the electrics and they don't, and there's a lot of heat out there in the Department of Defense right now to get electric vehicles. We get calls probably once a week from a base around the country and says, we need electric vehicles, heat's on us, what can you do for us? So as soon as our money, as soon as the check arrives, it's been in the mail for a year, we can do that. We can go out and make a major purchase and advance what we can. And at the other bases, we can also set up on the infrastructure and crash design and anything they need, we're set to go. Of course, in this industry, money is a problem. And another thing we do is we need to convert the electric vehicle industry from legislative-driven to market-driven. And economics is a big deal. We feel if the consumers, and we consider ourselves average consumers, if the vehicle to us is a problem, obviously we wouldn't buy it. And we get the feedback from people on base, just a wide spectrum of people. And so we kind of know what they look for. Try and make it transparent to them. A lot of the people, they go, you know, I didn't even know it was an electric, or I forgot about it. I just get in and go. And we've got to make it a market-driven industry, because the mandates, the money's falling apart basically. From what we see and we hear, a lot of the federal funding and state and local is being cut. So the future of the base. Last month, our friends on the BRAC committee, the Base Realignment and Closure Committee, decided McClellan Air Force Base was a dying dinosaur. And President Clinton was out there a few months ago, and in his speech he said, "I will not close McClellan because I need a place to land my plane." That came up a lot. There were, well, needless to say, the president won't be back to see us anytime soon. He's not really welcome there anymore, even though he's the boss. A lot of people are real upset. But we look at that as an opportunity. I mean, the big talk now is privatization. Take these closed bases, try and keep jobs, develop new industry, and the infrastructure is there, and it makes so much sense. We've had a problem before that the Air Force or Department of Defense cannot produce and sell a product. It's against the law. There was legislation, in fact, I'm sure it's still being worked on, that would ease some of those barriers, but it's still too many legal problems. But our attitude is this is the best thing that can probably happen to us, because we can now take the advances and the knowledge we have, and within a 5-year period, go from the Department of Defense to a commercial industry. And we're looking for people to come in, and obviously we need help. So, and that's for you folks too. The opportunity is out there. Right now is a great time, I think, to get funding for this, for the privatization. It's a real hot political issue. And in election year, we think it's perfect. So what we have to do is find that way to make that transition, but at the same time, we can still kind of ride on the DoD code strings and keep advancing. And the big question, the problems we have is, well, how can a private company come in and charge a car on base? And to us in our office, hey, they drive through the gate and plug it in. I mean, it's real simple. But the legal folks, well, let's see, they're not paying for the electricity, and you know, well, if we're going to go, we got to break down some of these barriers and just do it. So there's a lot of talk on privatization. There's no answers. Everyone says, well, Clinton says privatize. At our level, we say, great, let's privatize. Everyone in the middle says, what's that mean? What are we going to do? So a lot of answers, and somehow we're going to make it happen. The potential's unlimited, and it's going to be an exciting 5 years. We're also a member of the DOE Clean Cities program. I spent a lot of time getting that organized and working with people in Sacramento. There's 37 members of the coalition in Sacramento. So there's 37 partners we have right there. There's cities, you know, small cities in the area, and state, local, federal, and private companies. And there's a lot of people that want to come to McClellan and work. They say, it's there, let's open it, let's do it. But the base is kind of timid right now. Well, the big problem is if someone does come into work, who's going to be the first to leave the base? You know, if we give them workspace, say if someone comes in to convert vehicles, they want 2,000 vehicles on base, you know, what shop space? Who do we throw out the gate first? So there's a lot of politics involved, and a lot of talk and a little action, but our hope is to make it happen, do that action. And we get a little frustrated. We go to conferences and the people call us and we all say how good we're doing, and we don't know if that's true. In the last couple of years there's been some great advances, but at the same time we look at it as that this industry has to be market driven, and so we need to get there. Friday night everyone cheered when I think Steve mentioned it. We put a slide up, 35-cent tax on gasoline, and personally my feelings on that are, if the EV industry is going to make it, I know it's going to make it. There's every reason it has to. I don't think we want to tax gasoline because an increased tax, because soon enough there's going to be a tax on EV charging. I mean, any new thing that's out there, they're going to find a way to tax it. And that's one thing I kind of disagree with. No new taxes. Now our target market at the base, believe it or not, who we go to shows and schools and such. Our target market and our philosophy is kids in the 8th through 10th grade. The reason for that, we plant the seed. Schools today are teaching some environmental lessons. And people my age, I'm set in my ways. It's very hard for people to change. They've been raised with the automobile, put gas in and go. And we decided, you know, if we plant the seed in these younger kids, in a couple of years when things, markets start to go, and even down the road when they're consumers, that I think that's going to help. So with all the funding cuts, the propaganda we see all the time, the low price of gas, and gas now is cheaper than it was in the early 70s, or from what I remember, if you factor out inflation. Something's really wrong with that picture. So the mindset of the consumer is gas is cheap, cars cheap, away I go. And so we've got our work really cut out for us, the whole industry. But some of the bureaucracy needs to be streamlined. We applied for emissions credits to our local AQMB over a year ago. We followed all these fleet rules, and we thought we'd be good and apply for these credits to offset stationary sources. It's like you can bank your emissions. And after a year, they spent 3 hours on it, and they cannot understand their calculations. We followed everything, their examples, step by step by step, and I think they were surprised someone actually took them up on this. And they don't know what to do. You know, and the calculations, we have a guy who's going for his PhD at UC Davis in mechanical engineering. I mean, you've got to really be a smart guy to figure this out. And the average fleet manager can't do that. And they tout this, well, you buy these electric vehicles, you can get emissions credits. We've been told with our 60 electric vehicles that it's not worth cost. Of course, the AQMB charges us to review our calculations. They told us it's not worth the 3 or 4 hours they'll spend on this, the emissions. And we've got 60, and say if I own a small business and buy 2, and I'm told I can get emissions credits, bottom line's a joke. So it needs to be streamlined, it needs to be simple. I've replaced this vehicle with this, and here's my savings. We need a change in policy too. In Sacramento, and I'm sure everywhere. In fact, I read about a bypass in Willits the other day. I'm from Washington State originally, and there's some towns on 101 like that. Just back up in traffic, and they've talked bypass forever. That's a problem we have in this country. Is when traffic's bad, we just build another lane, tack a lane on, or build a new road. It's insane. There's a road or a street in Sacramento that right now, they've widened it twice in the last 15 years. There's no curb, telephone pole is right on the lane. They can't go any farther. In 5 years, who knows what they're going to do next. And instead of widening these roads and building new ones, they have to do alternative fuel vehicles. So the electric vehicle and alternative fuel industry, we know is ready to shed its training wheels and go. But it must be market driven, not legislative again, but it must be or mandated. It's got to be driven by the consumer. And I heard I guess I heard a little bit this weekend about public health issues. That's one thing we tend to forget at some of these conferences. And the focus on our program is freedom from foreign oil. And we're in the military, and they go, well, what do you mean? We say, well, the Navy isn't out there in the Atlantic for fun. Part of that's to keep those shipping lanes open. And Desert Storm cost a few pennies. And if people think that wasn't about oil, we can talk out in the hallway. I know the military shouldn't admit to that, but I'm close to retirement, and maybe they'll retire me early. But the health issues, my wife has some lung problems, and she gets an IV once a week that costs $1,000. And she said that for the rest of her life. And they give us a break on it. They say the price is usually $4,000 a week. And so my wife's kind of my barometer. When the air in Sacramento gets bad, she gets bad. And obviously, she still works, but she won't go shopping. And if anyone likes to shop, my wife does. So it becomes the whole issue. And she's one of thousands in the valley that have that. And it really hits the marketplace. I mean, my wife, she can go out and spend, but when she's sick, businesses suffer. I think half of Sacramento finance. And so they can probably do a study. But when the air quality is bad, people stay in. Air conditioning, there's, you just don't go out. And a couple times a year I fly to the LA Basin. It just amazes me when I fly in there. And I think if you take off when the sun's going down, you really get the effect of the fog, and when the headlights are starting to come on, just solid traffic and smog. A couple years ago I went down to UC Riverside for a conference, and I didn't know the hills were right there. It was amazing. The hills are right in the back of the school, and you can see them. And I think people live in that, and when I think Sacramento's bad, I think of that. And Sacramento is right now, well, we hear the 5th worst air quality in the country, anywhere from 7 to 5. It changes. This is one of those things we don't want to say we're number 1. We want to. We've got the geography with the Sierra Nevada mountains to potentially worse than LA. And if we act now, we can stop some of that, and definitely time. So we're going to take advantage of the privatization, and I think you all should too. Your tax dollars have paid for this big military machine over the years, and so take advantage of that. It's a great opportunity. A lot of these doors will be open. And we at McClellan have seen the vision of the future, and it's electrifying to see it. And I'd like to thank everyone, and good luck, and keep up the fight.
Bill, what's the date by which McClellan will close?
The politically correct answer is 5 years from now. We've been promised 8,700 jobs for 5 years, and then from the 6th through 10th year, they'll phase that out to about 4,000. However, this is an election year, so that sounds good. Personally, I think after the election in '96, it's going to go like 2 years, and I don't think we're going to save any jobs.
Okay, so the conversion of whatever the operation is that you're going to become has to be done in about 2 to 3 years, something like that.
We look at it, if we don't act and make a big push in 6 months, the opportunity will go away. Right now it's a lot of talk, and it looks great, but after the election, and as money gets tighter,
I'd like to ask you to pose your questions. Ruth, speak, and then we'll just direct them to the...
Yeah, I've got to be in Sacramento at about between 2 and 3, so I'm going to...
Go ahead and ask some questions.
I've got a suggestion for you.
Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
For helping the privatization, and coming back to my favorite theme, but at McClellan, you guys host the SCCA Solar 2 runs, and there have been some electrics running in those. And my suggestion to you is, if possible, to either build one yourself or get somebody local to run in those, because if you impress the people that go out and play with their Acuras and Hondas, you will have a market. I mean, those are what they call the early entry consumers. And they will, if somebody beats them, they're going to go out and buy that car.
Right.
I've gone up there and done some autocross in my red lead sled, and people like it, and they want to find out more about them. I do believe that competition built the auto industry, and I think competition is going to have to help build the EV industry, and one way to do it fairly cheaply and effectively is to put some cars into the SCCA Solar 2 autocross. They're not that expensive to pay $20 to get you.
Yeah, we tried to sponsor a big event on base. We thought if we can do a major event, something like this, have a conference and a rally and such. Well, our legal people said, well, what if someone got in a wreck? Or what if...
But SCCA does it every...
Well, and it turns out the base commander owns a Corvette, and they bring in the Corvette rallies all the time, so... The electrics, we may have a problem.
I have a suggestion. If you went forward with this, and I think it's a great idea. A number of California universities have very good Formula SAE cars, and they can only run them 2 years, and then they're obsolete. And they could easily be converted to electric. And a Formula SAE will clean up in an autocross. I know because ours does every time. And so it's the easiest way in the world in getting top time of the day with an electric vehicle. And there's a number of California universities that I'm sure would love to get in on this. And they are legal. That is, Formula SAE is a legal class in SCCA. So you've got a good chance with an electric Formula SAE. You don't have to build a car.
We tried to get the Air Force Academy to sponsor one of the Formula Lightnings, and
They're big bucks.
yeah.
Very big bucks.
The Formula SAEs exist, and I know the California universities have good ones. Right, there's Fresno, there's Chico, let me see, Davis. There are a number of, San Luis Obispo. A lot of them have very good old Formula SAE. You don't have to have their newest one, an old one. Because they've got racing tires, they're light, and with a suitably powerful electric motor, you need about 60 horsepower to win. But you can win. I mean, you're not just fast for an electric, you're fast. You beat all the Corvettes, all the Porsches, everything.
Yes.
And I guess, well, that's, SMUD is running the impact, or maybe it's over now. The test drives in Sacramento, everyone who drives that car says, I want it. It's time to go. And I guess I can't say how fast we went on base, but we blew some doors off some people. Well, speed limit's 25.
You made that easily.
There was a...
The top speed of the impact is governed down to 80.
Right.
So we can draw our own conclusions.
And it's,
That thing is a real kick in the pants, I've driven it.
sometimes people will kind of point at the electric cars and laugh, electric car. Well, this one guy in his 280Z pulled up his and something like that, 300ZX, and I knew him from my old job, and he kind of pointed, like, yeah, neat car, but it's electric. So I said, you know, hey, you ready? And that light turned green. By the time we got to the next intersection, we had to wait maybe, which was maybe 2 or 3 blocks, we had to wait maybe 15 seconds for him to get there. And then he starts giving us a bad time about going that fast on base. Those guys with one more stripe, they like to do that kind of crap. But you show people like that who have these fast cars, and you blow their doors off or something, and that's not while they're slow and this and that. And,
I can tell you who's doing that right now. Bob Schneeweiss in the Bay Area. He goes to the SCCA meets. He blows the doors off everybody except the Formula cars with wings. The only one he can't be is Barry Goldie. He's trying.
Yeah, it's amazing. So
And he's been up at McClellan a couple of times with that car.
so we're excited. Things like that just prove it's ready to go today, and we're going to do our best, and everyone else is too.
Good.
Thanks.
This is Ruth MacDougall, and from Sacramento Municipal Utility District. I'm really glad to be here. I consider this my family. It's always good to get recharged up here in Willits. And I really appreciate your putting on this conference every year, or SEER, whatever. So, I'm lucky to be working for SMUD, and it's a municipal utility. We have a few freedoms because we're a municipal utility. We are governed by our ratepayers and not by the Public Utilities Commission. We're sort of influenced by what goes on with PUC and around the state. But basically, our customers can tell us if they want more renewable energy, if they want electric vehicles. They can come to board hearings and make their voices heard. They can talk to their board members, elected board members, and tell us what they want. We've also had strong leadership from S. David Freeman in the past, and he's been influential, and his influence carries on even in his absence. SMUD, as I said, is a customer-owned utility, and we're able to invest in clean air technologies to a certain degree. And we also are in Sacramento, as Bill said, it was the 6th largest, or the 5th or 6th or 7th worst air quality in the nation. And we know it. We're also an ideal electric vehicle community because we're fairly flat, we're a nice temperature, and we're only about 35 miles across the whole city. And so it makes a very easy range for any electric vehicle program. As an electric utility and fuel provider, we have a responsibility to make sure that we can feed the transportation mode of the future. And starting in 1998, we expect the numbers to be very large. And our role as a utility is to make sure that infrastructure is there and that we can provide clean power and that it doesn't affect our ability to provide power to everybody else. In other words, we want our cars to charge off-peak as much as possible. We don't need that to happen right away because it's going to take a large number of electric vehicles to affect our load to the point where we have to put them off grid. And I'll show you why. Because is this pretty clear? Yeah. Right now, a normal house, you know, with a gas heat and everything, which is the majority there, the refrigerator and maybe cooling, air conditioner, some heating, lighting, everything. These are sort of the large loads. And a household with an electric vehicle would have, it's at a significant load on the household, but it's as any other large appliance and everything. We have air conditioning load programs, management programs where a lot of the air conditioners in the city are fitted with a radio frequency controller. And if we're in the summer peak days, you know, maybe 12 days in the summer when we have a lot of peak power load requirements, and actually because we want to buy some cheap power, we want to keep our rates down and everything, we can offload a third of the city at a time or cycle the air conditioners a little bit at a time. This is, our peak period is between 2 o'clock in the afternoon and about 8:30 at night. So that's really the significant period. In fact, the worst is right about 5:30. If people come home when we have a huge number of EVs and they plug in their EV at 5:30 and walk in the house and turn on their air conditioner at the same time, we might have a problem. And so we can effectively deal with that just the way we do with the air conditioners. Basically, it's as simple as getting a $12 timer and putting it on your EV. You go home, plug in as normal, but the timer goes on and starts charging at 9:30. So that's one of the things that we're thinking of and working on as far as providing clean power and sufficient power for electric vehicles. We're also an electric technology supporter. We understand the full effects of the clean air technology of electric vehicles, and we certainly want to promote that as a member of the community. In 1990, we got our start on this program by adopting the Clean Air Quality Improvement Policy. This also allowed us a little bit of free rein in enticing, inviting manufacturers to the Sacramento area. We would like to be a little bit more than just a provider for customers. We'd like to promote the EV industry in California and especially in Sacramento. So a lot of our programs are working towards that end, and especially our relationship with McClellan Air Force Base. And we see this as, it's a great base. It's a shame that it's closing down, but it's also an opportunity to get industry to move up there. There's tremendous facilities. It's just amazing. You walk around and there's just buildings full of facilities, for manufacturing. And so I can see a real opportunity there. We've also worked with our local government for EV readiness, and I would like to say to the auto companies who think that we need infrastructure is that the infrastructure is here. It's very easy, and it's happening in Sacramento. We try to lead the nation. We have a few things already. The building code ordinances. Every new house in Sacramento area will be EV ready. In the garage area, there'll be a raceway wired for electric vehicles. It won't be wired, but the raceway will be in there so that it's very simple to pull in the wires for $220. This costs the building industry something like $2.89 to install. It's no big deal. But it saves tremendous amounts of dollars, when the installation is put in for, of course, for the EV charging station. Here's basically what they put in: is a box, a raceway. This would fit a 220 volt, 40 amp service and a 110 volt, 20 amp service in your garage. So we can have our new homes ready for electric vehicles. We've gotten some experience with the impact program in wiring houses up for electric vehicles. GM, as you probably know, has 14 cities around the U.S. where they've got 10 vehicles for 6 months at a time, 2 weeks at a person's house, some 4-week loans. And so the utilities have gone in and wired the house for the electric vehicle. We've learned what it costs, what the minimum, maximum costs are, and also, how to quickly respond to this. We look forward to a 72-hour response time when somebody buys an electric vehicle, that we can have their, one-stop shopping, permitting, and wiring of their house for electric 72 hours. And again, this is sort of our role in this. In Sacramento, we've also gotten a parking ordinance, free parking for electric vehicles, and in all the facility, parking facilities operated by the city and state. We have probably I'm sure the largest number of electric public charging stations in Sacramento that are in the world. Although, I hear in Canada and other areas, there's all these parking lots with block heaters, and so that might be pretty easy to drive up to a parking lot and plug in there. But we have 175 outlets, that's full parking spaces for electric vehicles, with both 120, 30 amp plugs and 240, 40 amp circuits. So it's an either or. You could plug in a Hughes inductive charger, you could plug in any kind of plug. Recently we decided on a sort of standard NEMA 1450 plug, which is like your range plug. It's 3 blades and a little ground plug on it. And I can't say that all of them have that configuration yet, and so in our cars we sometimes carry a couple of small adapters because we aren't there as far as systematic yet, but as long as you've got the power there, it's just a simple matter of the adapters, and we're in the process of changing those all to the standard plug, so it should be easy for anybody to pull in. It's a 50 amp plug, but it's 40 amp circuit behind it, which is kind of, because there's no 40 amp plug in existence, this is where we're left with it, and we figure 40 amps is plenty. With 40 amps, as you know, you have to derate it 20%. You can really only pull 80 amps through a 40 amp circuit breaker, so you want to pull 32 amps through that. So your charger should only be pulling 240 volt 32 amps. And the same way with a, this says 120 30 amp, but I really believe the 20 amp service slides wrong. So through a 20 amp service, you can pull 16 amps without problem circuit breaker. Well, actually it takes a little while to pop the circuit breaker, but we have more trouble with our GFIs than we do with circuit breakers. And this is a problem I might get to later about charging systems. That seems to be a little bit of a weak link as far as power quality. But at any rate, we do have a lot of circuits out there. We find that people don't always use the public charging stations. They found that out in Rochelle too. Basically, the infrastructure is there. It's at home. And that's where people charge. That's where they can rely on charging. Workplaces is another great place for charging. There's about 8 charging stations at different workplaces. Besides SMUD, there's a whole lot of SMUD too. But Kaiser Hospital, Hewlett-Packard, TIAC is another computer company there. So there, people who drive EVs have gotten their workplaces to put in charging stations. So those 2 places, if you know you're going to be home and at work 8 hours a day, that's the most reliable place to charge anyhow. And my personal experience and my other EV club members' personal experience is that you sort of don't want to rely on those public charging stations anyhow. They're handy when you do run into them. But we feel it's important to show that we're ready if you want to charge down there. Some office buildings have been taking advantage of the public charging stations across them. I've gone to charging stations where there's 2 or 3, well, 1 or 2 is the max I've seen, 2 other EVs, and I've pulled into the 3rd EV charging station, so that makes me feel good. We have the free parking for EVs, and I know there's 36 people who have their little free parking tickets, so we can park and charge for free. And we have several at the military bases, of course, and privately owned parking structures, some in light rail stations, so that if you want an all-electric commute, you can drive your car to the light rail and then commute in with mass transit. We have EV charging rate options at SMUD. It's actually basically half price electricity, 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour. Costs you 8 cents a kilowatt hour, 8.5 cents a kilowatt hour normally. And so you can have a dual meter, so your electric vehicle is on this off-peak charging to incentivize you to charge off-peak. Basically, I think with enough education, people will also do that voluntarily, as they do with their air conditioners and other appliances. And we plan to do still 32 more charging stations in 1995 at 4 different locations. The Sacramento Metro Airport is putting in a fleet of rental cars, and we're going to be doing the charging stations for them. This is for the, all the state workers who fly up from LA and go to a meeting downtown. And Hertz and Avis have told me that 35% of the cars that rent at Sacramento Metro Airport go less than 50 miles. They just go into town and go back out. And so it's an ideal electric vehicle.
Where are you getting the cars?
It's actually the rental companies, so we don't know.
They're going to supply
Where they're gonna, yeah. And there may be some states of, help or encouragement from that. It's something that the agencies have been asking for a long time. So we have the EV charging station sign at all our locations. These are right now, they're being put on a mobile positioning system, so if you get the computer software, you can actually find your EV charging station that way. But also we've got a map, and our map has been kind of difficult to use in the past because it just shows a big star or a block, where the EV charging station is. And I've circled the block several times trying to find where to go into a parking garage with an EV charging station. So we're going to have a little cutout maps of each one of these, so you know where to pull in a car. But you all drive electric vehicles. You know where you want to charge them. It's basically a little.
Or a friend's house.
Oh yeah, or a friend's house. Right. But these signs are great. We put them up at all the the charging stations and everything. And I understand EAA is going to make a whole bunch of these so that you can have these around the country, or at least around the state. So here's a map of our locations. And just is right downtown Sacramento, and then we've got them up and around the city, in various locations. Here's a picture of one of our EV charging stations outfitted with a Hughes charger. It's as simple as just plugging the Hughes charger in there if you want to have one. And it's got a little bumper guard around it so that you don't knock it over. And this is one, you see another state vehicle sitting right there, and I pulled up next to it. And this is the Hughes paddle, of course. And it's what we've been putting installed for residential charging for the GM Preview program. And here's our solar EV charging station. We have about 16 receptacles under that. So we feel we're ready for EVs. Now let's get EVs ready for us. The GM Preview program was very informative. People love the car. That's obvious. They want to buy it. Although, the real experience in driving a car can't be captured in two weeks. I know I've been driving electric for 2 years, and even the first 6 months I was like constantly looking at my fuel gauge. I was constantly plugging in. I was sort of this, GM describes in their focus groups and everything, their drivers are always a little bit worried about the fuel. Well, they've been trained. Don't run out. Plug in. They've been taught to worry about the fuel. And actually, you know that, and it doesn't go away for a while. And after you drive longer and longer, you get real familiar with your vehicle, how far to go, where you want to go. You stop even looking at the fuel gauge. So, how often do you look at your gas gauge? You sort of have this mental image of when it's time to look at it, when you need to fill up again. And you actually get that way with an EV. So when people drive them constantly, I think that fear is going to go away, and of course the impact has a pretty good amount of range as it is, 70, I've heard people driving 90 and 100 miles when they go easy on them. The impact drivers have all, goosed the heck out of it because it's so much fun and they want to show it off. They've all taken all these little short trips and, only discharged the battery about 20% and maybe in Sacramento about 30-40% in LA because they have longer, it's a bigger city, longer ranges that they normally drive. So that's sort of the experience. SMUD has put on a lot of ride and drives for people. We've gotten a lot of public exposure of electric vehicles. Focus groups where we've gotten some feedback from folks about specific vehicles and design features. And we've even had the Prez out. It's Bill Clinton in the little green Horlocker pickup out there. So he's, what's that?
How would it look to you? That would be like Michael Dukakis.
Right. In a little electric car. Well, he's
How
smiling.
did you get a right-hand drive model?
The slides are set.
Well, have I got it against? Oh, it's inside. There it is. Right.
Is there a better print of that picture? That would be a hell of a...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
Oh, I'm
good.
sure, yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty good. We're gonna blow that up and put it on a poster.
You probably know there's a lot of cost share incentives coming around. There's always been, for a while there's been a federal income tax credit, federal tax deductions, state income tax credits. Sacramento Metro Air Quality Management District finally came up with a little incentive for zero emission vehicles, $800 for a medium duty vehicle, $500 for a light duty, and $100 for a motorcycle, electric motorcycle even. Of course, that was outdone by South Coast Air Quality Management District by a mile. They have now adopted a $5,000 incentive. Is that right? $5,000 incentive for certain OEM vehicles, or basically qualified electric vehicles, they call them. And this will basically down price, rebate the customer $5,000 off the price of an electric vehicle. That'll go over about a couple thousand vehicles.
Is that in place now?
That's in place now.
Is that included in your building or something?
Nope. It'll be, will be an RFP for qualifying, electric vehicles. And actually,
Is that money paid to the person buying the car?
well, I don't know the details of it. Probably, paid to or offset of the price to the person who buys the car.
Ruth,
Yeah,
let me go ahead
Please.
and show you that. It's part of what's called the EV California effort. You may have heard of EV America, where they're working on 5,000 electric vehicles over the next year or so. And the $5,000 is considered a buy down. Again, as we've said, is there for qualified vehicles. EV California will be testing proposed vehicles, people that want to submit their vehicles that produce large numbers for California consumers. So they have to be specific vehicles that were tested with the Air Resources Board, that were tested as even part of EV America to some extent. And then once those vehicles are chosen, consumers that purchase it within the state, we have funding allocated $6 million right now to help the buy down of anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 electric vehicles over the next 2 years. So hopefully you'll see vehicles sold to you as a consumer for $25,000. We'll just use an example. It will actually cost you $20,000 because of the $5,000 buy down. So that's in essence the program she's talking about.
Has any vehicle qualified yet?
No, because we have not initiated testing. We are working with EV America. They have their own set of criteria. We do not feel confident with those criteria. For instance, they have a minimum 50-mile range on a constant speed, 45 mile an hour. That's ridiculous. We want real driving cycles. We want better certification in terms of safety, etc. That's just one example. So we're working to to work alongside EV America, but California will have its own specific targets. We want to protect the consumer to some extent, and we expect to be evaluating vehicles probably within the next month or two. They are currently being evaluated in EV America, but we will have extra tests, extra requirements. And so I believe we will finish up testing certainly by the end of this year. And you'll start hearing more about it as far as production of vehicles and the sale to Californians and the buy-down, the $5,000 buy-down beginning next year.
So are conversions basically excluded from this?
Conversions are not excluded. We anticipate, again, the ones you've heard of, Selectra, I don't know about Alan Cohen's car, but we will have Chrysler, GM, everyone's going to be participating in this. We may even have Toyota participate. Of course, there's a little sensitivity there, but we fully expect to see quite a number of vehicles. And just so you know, we're even getting some more advanced technologies. Incremental hybrids being placed on the Selectra that's being evaluated now. So it's getting very exciting, and it's open to anyone that feels they can meet those standards. And I will say this, for any converters that are interested, we are going to be very strict on FMVSS. We need some certification that these things are going to be safe and that the consumer will be protected. So let's be honest, there's a lot of converters that are not capable of doing that. And that is very much a concern.
Is the certification program going to be ongoing, or are you just going to certify a certain number of cars and then shut the door?
Oh, I'm sure it will continue. I'm sure it will continue. And it's hard to answer that question until you see what the, I hate to use the word environment, but how things are, politically, economically, etc. But if all goes well, I fully anticipate that and the funding's coming, just to give you a little more background, the funding's coming from the registration fees. Everyone sees in the registration fees each year, I think everyone does in California, anywhere from $5 to $7 in the registration fees. So that's called MSRC funding, and there's no reason why a successful initial 1 or 2 years will not continue. However, maybe the situation will be things that just take off so wonderful you don't need it anymore. I don't know. So it's hard to answer that.
Is there a mailing list one can get on for your standards and specifications?
Are you not familiar with EV America? Have you not received anything on EV America?
No, because we're a kit manufacturer.
Okay.
Folks are steadfastly ignoring it.
Well, I'm not EV America, so.
Well, they are.
But certainly we can get that to you. I don't know if you have my number or my card.
I'll catch that for you.
Okay, and we can get one to you. That's it. Yeah, sorry, Liz.
No, that's fine, I appreciate that clarification. And I understand also that one of the requirements of that program will be that there is a service infrastructure in place, and that's very important. Corridor communities. I mentioned $6 million. There's also another $1 or $2 million that's been allocated for establishing infrastructure, for enticing various corridors or communities to get involved with setting up charging stations and basically becoming EV ready. So yes, we understand that that's also needed, and we're going to focus on that as well.
Just a point of clarification, the way I understand the last information I have received is that those funds will not be available until July 27th.
That is not true. The funds are actually available now. They were passed through the appropriate boards, etc., very recently. The $6 million is part of this year and next year. So I don't know where you heard that, but that's not true.
So, I keep saying we are EV ready. It's really not that big a deal. I mean, other countries may have problems because I hear their electric grids are not as strong and robust as ours. and they don't have the excess power. But the U.S. has excess electric power right now, and we have no problem charging at night, and very little problem most of the day. So the infrastructure is here. And then they say, well, okay, I'll go on to that later. I wanted to talk about managing electric vehicle fleets. SMUD has had some 50, 60 electric vehicles with McClellan. You know, we've got like a total of 140 electric vehicles, and we've had them for a long time. There's, from our experience, we've learned that electric vehicles fit a mission very well. If you can fit the vehicle to the mission and keep it in that mission, it's most successful. Electric vehicles like to be driven. They don't like to sit around and sit on their chargers, and they don't like to sit off their chargers, you know, because it's not very good for batteries. You don't get a very good cost per mile ratio on that. So the ideal fleet management for an electric vehicle is to have a single driver and have a mission that's repeated day in and day out. That's the ideal. You can't always achieve that, but I mean, if you have a fleet of 500 vehicles, look for those missions and put the vehicle there, fit the vehicle to the mission, and do that first. Take the cream off the crop first and do that. Second, look for missions which are a little bit more volatile, and maybe a pool of vehicles, pool cars. We've had our electric vehicles in demos and as pool vehicles, and that's slightly less effective because you've got a variety of drivers. They don't get to know the vehicle as well, and if they were completely user-friendly and very easy to read the state of charge, for instance, and easy to know that, then it wouldn't be a problem. And recently we've gotten some state of charge gauges that are very, very accurate, and it's much less of a problem. But with pool vehicles, you also need to be able to just approach the vehicle and read the state of charge meter from outside the vehicle without getting in and turning on the key, that sort of thing, or a sign-up sheet. I mean, simple little things like a sign-up sheet, courtesy, that says this one is charged or this one is not charged, or wait till tomorrow and drive this one again, that sort of thing. A little bit of fleet management might be more necessary than if you've got gas cars sitting out there in the driveway. So a little fleet management wouldn't hurt. We found in our electric vehicles, the most common things to fail are sort of the charging systems or the auxiliary battery systems. This is sort of like the least understood element in some of the conversions in the vehicles that we've gotten. The OEM type vehicles are the ones that have been really fully designed, actually like the G-Van, even though it's kind of a big monstrosity, it's got some real reliability in those kind of systems that they've been a little bit more successful. We've looked at electric vehicles because we've had some experience and focused on a few of the problems with electric vehicles. We look at where the energy is used in EVs, and of course the mass is the biggest problem. If you're pushing out, building a car like a gas car, truck, or van, or whatever, like a gas vehicle, and you've got this excess mass, it's not going to work as well as with a lighter weight vehicle. So SMUD has several programs going on for developing lightweight electric vehicles, as you see the Horlocker pickup truck out there, and also the second issue is battery systems. And I say battery systems, they say is the battery stupid? Well, I don't think it's the battery stupid. I think it's the battery system stupid, because systems we don't understand as well as we understand batteries. A battery manufacturer will test the battery, they'll cycle a battery, and it'll look great. But you put it in a string, and the longer the string, the more complicated the problem becomes. And that's where it doesn't act like a single battery does. You probably, a lot of you know this from your own experience, but our shorter stringed, smaller voltage, lower voltage cars have a lot less trouble than the higher voltage cars, unless you have some kind of a battery management system. We have a lot of flooded batteries in our system, our fleet, and they work fine because you've got a long string of batteries. You're gassing them for about 15% overcharge, and that sort of equalizes the batteries in the string. But a lot of times you also shorten your life because you're doing a lot of excess gassing and a lot of excess charging on the vehicles. But at least you get your full capacity each time. With the sealed batteries, if you just charge it like a flooded battery and just look at pack voltage or something like that, then you've got some problems. So a lot of our battery testing has been also testing the battery management systems, where we're looking at each individual module in a battery pack. And we stop the charging when one of the modules reaches full voltage, and we do some equalizing charges to the rest of the batteries. When we're discharging a pack, you're driving a pack, you want to stop when the lowest module on the pack reaches 80% depth of discharge. And you want to know when that's going to happen. And a normal state of charge meter is not going to tell you that. So, I think Alan Piccone has got a great battery management system integrated in his whole, vehicle. And so he knows, he's not deep discharging his batteries. You think that if the manufacturers could just make them just exactly the same, all the batteries would come up together and go down together. Well, they don't, even if they do make them very, very similar, because there's temperature differences and there's just minor differences in how each of the batteries are acting. They're chemical, they're not a simple mechanical function. And so you do need to kind of control that charge and discharge a little bit. So our best experience actually with battery systems or battery packs have been when we put added battery management to them. We destroyed some packs in a pretty short time, like 1,500 miles, and then we put a battery management system in the same pack, same vehicle, and everything. And we don't know when the end of the life will be. They're going fine at 3,500 miles. I know that's pretty, it's not very much driving. But we're continuing to test. So. Wanted to talk a little bit about the fleet rules that are coming up. There's government fleets are under the EPACT, let's see, the electric, what is it?
Energy Policy.
Yeah, Energy Policy Act. And this is an opportunity and also a burden, because in 1996, and I unfortunately I faxed the sheet to Sherry. I don't know if you brought it with you. I was hoping you would. And then I forgot it back in the office. So, but basically, there's a high level of electric vehicles mandated by government fleets, like 10% of their purchases in 1996, I think, and it goes up to 25% in 1998, and on up to 90% by the year 2002 or something like that. Incredible percentages of vehicles must be alternative fuel vehicles. That's starting really early in 96, and I don't see too many vehicles around that they can buy. So I don't know what we're going to do. If you think that you've got a vehicle by the end of 96, you've got to get your foot in the door and tell them about it right now. Otherwise, you know what they're going to do. They're going to have to go to natural gas or methanol or flex fuel, reformulated gasoline, and if they do natural gas or methanol or some of these others, they're going to put in enormously expensive infrastructure like refueling tanks and compressors and all this stuff. And believe me, that's where they've got an infrastructure problem. And once they go through that expense, they may just go on down the road and complete, their fleet with one type of fuel. The only people who have the only fleets that have an exception on this is the electric fuel providers. The electric utilities, or any, gas and electric utilities, are allowed to forego the purchase of alternative fuel vehicles until 1998, if in 96 they commit to making that share of vehicles electric. So avenues for providers, vendors, is to talk to the electric fuel providers and say, we'll have a vehicle for you in 1998, commit yourself to it now. And then, you know, for just general government fleets, that's state, federal, county fleets, you got to get your foot in the door now. Or you could even get your foot in the door and say, you know, go easy on this expensive infrastructure. We're going to have good vehicles. If you really want to go electrics, we'll have some later. So, you know, I think the rules say that 10% of your purchases can be, you know, need to be alternative fuel. Well, you know, that might just curtail a lot of purchases in the next couple of years. They might just say, oh, well, we need to kind of trim our fleet anyhow. Let's not buy anything this year at all. And so that might delay a few purchases. Well, that might help us out, but you know, if you can talk your potential customers into delaying purchases until you have vehicles, they might be more willing and able to go electric. I don't want to see electric lost in this game plan here.
Is that a federal act? Is that state?
Federal. Yeah.
The fleet vehicles necessarily have to be 4,000.
I don't see why. You know, Mike Brown was asking, what do utilities use their electric pickups for, et cetera, et cetera? What do they carry? Well, you know, pickup trucks have been around because they've been cheap. And they've been cheap because there's only 2 seats in them and a big truck bed. It's cheaper to make than a 4-passenger vehicle. And they've previously been, had less requirements as far as safety and crash worthiness and everything, so they've been able to make them cheaper. Now they have to kind of fit some of the safety requirements of as a passenger car. But pickup trucks are not really used as pickup trucks a lot of times. They're used because they look like a fleet vehicle. They look like you know, something that utility workers doing. A lot of times, paper pushers and bureaucrats get in their truck and they go somewhere and, you know, in a truck when they really could be using a much more efficient, you know, sedan. So, you know, knowing that, you know, you might be able to talk them out of trucks, that sort of thing. A lot of fleets are made up of vehicles and they don't know what they're doing. They're just, you know, some department demanded that they need some vehicles for their people and they got vehicles. And yet they really don't carry a lot of payload. They don't know what kind of payload they're carrying. Fleet managers are going to have to start examining this a little bit more carefully. And I think this is overall, I don't think SMUD's any, you know, less aware of what their fleet vehicles are doing than any other fleet. Yeah.
So do you think a 2-seater is enough for the average consumer just going to and from work then? 2-seater car over, say, a 4-seater with capacity for groceries and the dog?
Well, actually, I think a 1-seater is enough, but that's my personal opinion because I've been driving one for 2 years. But then I think 2-seater is enough. Yeah. I don't know that you know that the paradigm has shifted to where people understand that. Yeah.
The fastest declining segment of cars and car sales in this country is the 2-seat car.
Mm-hmm.
The fastest growing is a pickup truck. It's got to have at least 4 seats and room for groceries.
Pickup, you mean the van?
A passenger car.
Yeah. Okay.
Or be a truck. I mean, they're building trucks, but 2-seat sports cars. Toyota discontinued the MR2.
Yeah.
Pontiac axed the Fiero a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I mean, 2-seat sports cars are definitely not the way to go if you want to make any mass sales at all.
Yeah. Well, you know, look at that Honda out there. It's got plenty of room inside and out, and it's probably not a lot heavy. Well, I don't think it's a lot heavier than the GM Impact. GM went for the sports car aspect of things. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a director of a utility district up here, not utility, but a water fire type district. And we put in our budget, the general manager proposed an electric pickup truck buy this year, and we said we better wait. So we put off that purchase until the following year. But we're definitely looking for a heavy carry pickup type, you know, for water district use. This isn't, you know, some paper pusher running around. Although our meter reader might be the effective first buy because that is a lightweight use without the heavy carryability. But you know, we're going from a 500-foot elevation to a 3,000-foot elevation. Per day mileage of 50 miles would probably be fine for that, but we're going to have heavy load carry and high elevation change need in a pickup truck. And, you know, these are the full box tool carry, even up to a winch, you know, if you winch up a pump or something. So these requirements you have stated about government, we're going to have to meet, and the only way to meet that is with heavy carry pickup trucks for the servicing type of capabilities we have to provide.
Right, because that's the majority of your fleet?
The majority of our fleet are pickup trucks with heavy carry capability.
Well, electrics don't fit every mission. And you know, you really have to design a vehicle carefully to have a lot of payload left over with electrics right now. So, you know, you've got to sort of look at that and what's offered. And there are some vehicles that have more payload than others in the electrics. And yeah, it's like the very number one thing that you have to look at.
Well, what you've described, though, is that there is an instant market that's mandated that is over the next 5 to 7 years. If whoever meets those particular needs are going to capture that market.
Right.
So there's your market-driven factor to the mandate.
Yeah, it is, and that's why they did it, too. But I think, you know, again, the electric vendors are going to have to skim the cream off of that and look for the larger fleets where they can integrate electrics and do the training and the education that's necessary and really understand how those vehicles are going to be used. Yeah.
In terms of finding a consumer, which I'm one looking for an electric vehicle for my wife's commute. Now the question comes to mind currently, she's disposed to wanting an electric vehicle. On the other hand, to minimize what she's doing now, she carpools. So a one-seater, two-seater, right now
there's plenty of larger.
But a four-seater, but carrying a full load, and on a 50-mile one-way commute is a challenge, right?
Well, that's challenging, but it is possible.
I'm saying that the customer base that's inclined or disposed towards an electric vehicle are already out trying to do what they can to minimize the gas-consuming vehicles. And they still, even though it's a commute situation, still need a higher payload.
But I would say that 50-mile commuter carpooler with 4 people is a rare exception. Because, again, let's skim the cream. Not every vehicle has to be electric. But in the cities, where you've got the urban smog problem, you have 93% of the people driving themselves to work every day. They can have an electric easily, very easily. It can be a second car very easily. If only 50% of a family's cars are electric, that's fine. That's a big step in the right direction. And a lot of single people can have electrics and do their commuting, go all around town and everything. And for the price of keeping a gas vehicle, in other words, insuring, registering, upkeep, and everything on that vehicle, they can rent a gas car and go out of town 2 or 3 days a month, you know, or a couple of weekends a month, with no problem, no excess in money going out for that gas car. Or share vehicles, you know, 2 or 3 electric vehicle only drivers can share a gas vehicle for their longer range trips. It's very easily done with, you know, the insurance companies have no problem with that. But you want to look for the missions that fit the electrics where they are right now, and there's a lot of them. And if I think have the most confidence in the consumer market, because when you look around at all the people you know who drive electric vehicles, if they've paid their own money and bought their own electric vehicle, they drive that thing all the time, and they love it, and they keep it up, and they have no problem with it. The fleets have a lot of problems because they're given these vehicles, they're not given enough training, and they're told, you know, drive them, and they don't care for them, and if they have a choice, if they have any other option like another gas vehicle that they can get into, they don't drive the electric. If one driver is given a vehicle and he's not given another vehicle, basically, and he's coached though and understands how to drive that vehicle, he will drive it and use it, and it's fine. But really, the better consumer is the person who buys that vehicle or who chooses that vehicle in the fleet. We have fleet vehicles. We have, you know, like 60 meter readers, and 3 of the meter readers signed up and want to drive the electrics, and they drive them every day. But you know, the other, we don't have to try to convince the other 57 to drive the electrics, because, you know, or actually there's more than 3, but basically the first 3 who've really been avid at it, you know, have been driving the electrics. So, you know, let the people drive them who really want to drive them. There's a lot of opportunity for once people get in the electric vehicles, they start to like them and they don't want to go back to a gas vehicle. I think if the car companies start with leasing programs, that may be a very good way to get people into vehicles. I know drivers' habits change after you're driving for about 6 months. It becomes a whole different animal than when you first get in it. You give yourself a week in an electric vehicle and you have no idea what it's really like. You're just constantly looking at the state of charge meter. It's like, oh, how far can I go? And you know, I think I told you, GM says everybody's worried about the range on the impact. Well, it's a totally new vehicle to them. They don't know what it's, you know. Sure, you're worried. Actually, it lasts a lot longer than 2 weeks. It lasts about 6 months, you know. And then after that, it's just a piece of cake.
No big deal.
There's no big deal. So, you know, we've got to enter the market easily like that. And you know, obviously, once you plunk down $15,000 for a car or something, you have a vested interest in liking it, and those are the best advocates.
I'd like to make a comment just to respond to what something you were saying. In 1970s, 1980, there were a lot of electric vehicles built with Carter dollars, and you know, there was a big push for electric vehicles. And I pulled one of those vehicles out of the mountains above Malibu in 1990, just before the Phoenix races. And 1 week before the race, we pulled a vehicle that had been sitting for 10 years up in the mountains. One of these vehicles that was converted. And somebody spotted a couple of these and wanted to buy one, and had me come up and evaluate. And I looked it over and I said, well, gee, I mean, this is actually pretty cool. It's pretty neat. 1980 Ford Fairmont station wagon. It weighed 4,000 pounds. Okay? And we pumped up the tires, put a new set of batteries in it, and I drove it 50 miles back to Venice to clean it up and do more work on it. I just literally drove it right on. It had regenerative braking going down the slopes. I mean, I didn't even know it. And I took my foot off the accelerator and it went into this, it slowed down, and it was really, and I saw the meter peg and I said, wow, they really had it all. It was all here. How much miles was on this speedometer? This was given to a U.S. naval base. It had 127 miles on it. What had happened was that they delivered this to the base and said, drive this. This is an electric vehicle. You're a government facility. Drive it. I mean, you're you know, military, government, whatever. And the charger was set on the wrong settings for this country. I mean, it was set on the wrong settings, so the thing blew up, and nobody knew how to do anything about it. They parked it. They parked it. And I think that's sort of a good sort of basis for the story that every electric vehicle person will tell you, don't build a station wagon. You have to, I mean, Mike's has a way of saying it, being mission specific, know exactly what you're going to do with the electric, design it to do that. If you can't do that, don't do it. Because it's not, this, a station wagon is synonymous for wishy-washy. You haven't figured out quite what you want it to do, so you're trying to build something that will do everything. And that means it will do nothing very well. I mean, it'll do no one thing very well. It'll be very inefficient. An electric vehicle in the state of California is a carpool. One person driving an electric is a carpool because you have reduced emissions by down to a 15th of what they were over for the same mileage as a gas-powered car. And you're using 1/3 of the original resource, BTU resource, whether it's energy, whether it's coal or nuclear or hydro or anything else. You don't need as much energy to move it as far. And so that's not a good mission for electrics. It's not difficult to do a 50-mile commute one way for electric today. I mean, many vehicles do that. But you need to be able to charge at the work site in that 8 hours to get that power to go back. And if it's all uphill and it's a big vehicle, it's not going to work very well. And so what Ruth is saying is, let's just pick the jobs that EVs will do really well at, and there are many of them to find. And if you're commuting, a two-seater, small, lightweight two-seater, very well built, and you get another person to go with you, that's equal to 2 carpools. In terms of how much is being used in doing that specific job. So maybe it would be a matter of don't try to do the payload. That's something else. You leave that maybe for the gas power to do, because when people have really no clue about the percentage of time they spend doing certain things until they really, really think about it. And most people get in a car, and if you go out and videotape cars going from the overpass, one person in every kind of car and truck that you can imagine. One person. Pickup trucks are not full. The tailgates are up. That's 10%, less mileage right there. I mean, there's no consciousness. Most people have no way to relate energy. So it's really important for us. I won't build a vehicle like Tony was talking about. I probably wouldn't try to build a vehicle like that. It's very difficult. I mean, it can be done. There are people who can do that. There's no reason why. I mean, they have electric buses, and they're working well. And I think that the work vehicle that Tony's talking about is much, much less than any bus, electric bus. It doesn't have to have that much battery capacity. It doesn't need to be that heavy. Those are workhorses. I mean, they're getting 20 or 30 people times a certain amount of weight. That's a lot of payload. So it's totally possible to do, but we really want to make sure electrics are going in initially into the areas where they serve the best function. And it's really important not to try and build a lot of payload, a lot of capacity for people, to make it the all-purpose car. Make your gas-powered car, which will sit in the curb for years and not get much use. Because I did that. Running an electric, I had my gas-powered car as the backup. It got used twice in 3 years, the gas-powered car. But I had to make that decision, that reality check every day. And it's like I always wanted to use the electric. I mean, once you do electric for a while, I'm sorry. It's really kind of like being addicted to oil. All of a sudden, you're addicted to fun, and become the most popular person in the world. Because most people are just dying to find out more about electrics, and they can't get the information. All of a sudden, there's one in front of them, and they want to know everything about it. They'll ask you all the set of questions, and and you get to do all the answers. So just a little perspective.
I just wanted to add a footnote to something you were saying earlier about the policies that we got passed in Sacramento County. With the county, we did it as part of the general plan. We proposed some policies, and we called some meetings. We got developers to come to these meetings and explain how low cost the added piping of conduits would be. And they had to think about it for a while, but some of those same people that came to the meeting we called were central in convincing the building industry to go along with it. And so when you hear general plans in your local cities and counties, there are some policies that we've been successful with in Sacramento County, and we can send you some of that information, or I'd be happy to. That's send each of you.
So I want to finish up with talking about, the most obvious, easiest electric vehicles are the smallest ones. Electric bikes, electric scooters, they can get a lot of people out of their cars the soonest, the quickest, and the easiest. And they're most like the original, pedal powered or whatever, or gas powered vehicles in their emission. In other words, an electric scooter can do just what the gas scooter was doing, and it's used about the same way. So the more that type of vehicle you can get out and use yourself, the better off we are. That's also, a possibility for developing nations where they have major pollution problems. If they start mass producing those for Taiwan and some of those cities, I think we can see a lot of effect there. I wanted to counter something about how many vehicles have been built. Actually, one of the reasons we need to get the OEMs in the U.S. to start building electric vehicles mass scale is because we've got a lot of global competition. Daihatsu, in the last 2 years, has built 5,000 electric vehicles. 2,400 in 1993 and 3,900 in 1994. They've put those on the road in utilities and government fleets in Japan, and somebody says, oh, but they're these little Daihatsu vans, that we would use here. But think of the experience they're getting with 5,000 vehicles on it. Think of the battery cycles they're getting, and you know, the experience they're getting that our car companies are not getting. They have 100 vehicles out there. They have 50 vehicles out there. They still don't quite understand their vehicles yet. And so I think that kind of experience, they're in the same sort of family as Toyota. So Toyota is gaining from that experience. These companies, they form, you know, relationships, and they learn from each other, and they share information. We've got that, and then we've got these Hondas out here today. We've got to keep our U.S. car companies strong by holding their feet to the fire on this mandate. And mass production is the only thing that's going to get the price down. And the infrastructure, the service infrastructure that car companies have, that OEMs have, is vital to electric vehicles. They have the ability to train their mechanics. They train their mechanics all the time on new systems. A car right now with all their electronic systems doesn't even resemble a car 15 years ago or 10 years ago even. And so you know they've had to train their mechanics all the time. So it's no big deal for them to train their mechanics on how to work with an electric vehicle. They've already got that in place. To have a small manufacturer start up and build all that, I mean, it's going to take a lot of money. So, you know, we need the OEMs to kind of do this. And they can do it, and they can do it for a good price, no matter what they say. They don't right now. But I think, in closing, I just would like to give them a choice. If they are not going to build EVs at 2% and then 5% and then 10%, let's give them a choice. Then they can pay the health costs, the costs of the health effects of the air pollution for 2%, 5%, and 10%. And given that choice, if they looked at the cost to society of asthma, emphysema, et cetera, I think that they find it cheaper to build EVs. Thank you.
Bob Martinez from BAT.
As you said, I'm Vice President of BAT International. I wanted to do a little brief overview of the company, where we started, how we got to where we are now, and where we plan on going in the next year or so. We were incorporated out of Salt Lake City, Utah, about 4.5 years ago. Joe Stella is the founder of the company and the president. For those of you who know him and who don't know him, he's probably our biggest asset and our biggest liability, all rolled into one.
Tactfully said.
He's a pretty amazing guy. He can be very abrasive, very blunt, very short. He's originally from New York, which you can get him out of New York, but you can't get New York out of him. He worked most of his career with Con Edison, so he's got a utility background. He is a licensed engineer, structural engineer. And it's because of him, though, that we made some major advances. That's why our vehicle outside looks the way it does and runs the way it does. We went through a number of evolutionary changes. We dealt with flooded batteries and went through the whole realm of different types of batteries. Roughly about a year ago, there was a number of significant changes that took place, and almost all of them simultaneously. One of the things that happened was we were accepted to the CalSTAR incubator program. We moved our main production facility out of Salt Lake down to Burbank. And it's taken us almost a year, but we just recently completed phasing out our Utah operation. We have a small service facility there, but everything's down to Burbank now. About the same time, we also got accepted to EV America, and we submitted 3 vehicles for testing, which was very, very involved, took a lot of our time. Unfortunately, we had also at the same time cut a deal with, at that time, Optima Battery. So here we have all these different things going on at once. But another thing that occurred right around the same time was we were doing Geo Metro and Ford Ranger conversions. Well, Geo changed its model. It was a model change year for them. So the 95 Geo that came out right at the end of the EV America testing was a totally different vehicle than what we were actually testing in EV America. so that the vehicles that were in there were already obsolete as the testing was going on. The deal we cut with Optima, and it's essentially the same batteries that Al Capone's using. We're using the deep cycle batteries made by Optima. However, they're making those in a 6-volt configuration. They also, at the same time, agreed to take our ultra-force battery catalyst, which most people know as gap juice, and incorporate that into batteries. That's been one of our other obstacles. You know, the bad mouth about the catalyst. A lot of people don't know what it's like, and they listen to rumors. But there's been a lot of people up in this area that have been using it for 3-4 years now, and talk to any one of them, and they all still swear by it. And it's doing wonders for those batteries. The batteries are operating real well. In the 6-volt configuration, it's only 3 cells together, they're 3.5 inches wide. And we can lay them on their side and put them in the big belly pan underneath the car. The 95s we can do it with, which we couldn't do with the 94s, because all of a sudden the 95s are 2 inches higher off the ground. They come with 13-inch tires instead of 12-inch tires, which gives you 9-inch disc brakes instead of 8-inch, with the standard rear anti-lock brakes, dual airbags, front and rear struts. It's a totally different car. It's a much, much better car than the 94s were. So between the 95s changing and the deal with Optima, now all of a sudden we have a 4-seater car where we don't touch the interior. All the batteries go external underneath the car. We don't cut the floorboards or the cross members of the chassis. We've actually designed it so that the belly pan actually reinforces the chassis, which we have crash tested, and it showed that it actually reinforced it to the point that the car is actually stronger than it was as a gasoline vehicle, and more stable. In the crash test, the battery box did not breach. We had some cracks from compression of the batteries, but no electrolyte leaked out. We did a complete rollover test, which is going to be required in 98, and they said 0 electrolyte leaked out. These are the Optima batteries and what they're constructing. We've also been working with Horizon, with ElectroSource and Horizon batteries. We've been working with them for quite a while. The car I've got outside right now has the Horizon batteries in it. And we've been working through the problems with them, along with Optima. They're both been having volume control problems and different inherent problems in the batteries. Both of them are now getting to the point where they're turning into dependable batteries. The ElectroSource batteries in this car right now is the first set that we really have not had problems with. The Optima batteries are still having some minor problems. However, especially in the configurations that we're doing, we're running a 144-volt system, which means that we're putting 48 batteries in the car. And to try to get these things equalized and balanced, we're having to put at least 6 to 8 cycles on it before we can find out if we've got one that's not up to par. And then we have to pull it out and replace it with a good one. Once we get a good pack, they're great little batteries. They are really good. All of our cars now are being pre-wired for these different monitoring systems that are coming out. There's a number of them emerging. Our cars are already wired, so that right now we have a little box in the trunk where you can manually take a meter and check each individual battery. And you can find out right away if you've got a bad one. And in a very short time, there's going to be computer systems that will do this for you and get readouts on each individual battery. We've got several data checks installed where those systems will actually charge each individual battery and equalize the system right in the car before it brings the whole system up together. We recently did another engineering change and changed all our systems over to 144 volt. We talked to Advanced DC Motors. They started making an 8-inch, high torque, high RPM, 8-inch motor at 144 volts, which is a great little motor. It's a little bit expensive. We talked to Curtis PMC. They designed a controller to match it, which is now on the market. It's a 144 volt, 500 amp controller, which is a great little package. We have just recently received our first shipment of 25 motors from a manufacturer who is now manufacturing these motors for us. I can't tell you who it is, I can tell you they're out of Europe. This motor is now a 12-inch motor. It's a series wound brush type motor. It's 144 volts. And to compare it to what else is around, the normal 9-inch advanced DC motor has about 135 foot-pounds of torque. This one is rated at 360 foot-pounds of torque. So I've got to take that Curtis controller and turn it down as far as it will go. And if you're not careful, it'll still spin the tires when you take off. One of the things that we do is we're still using DC drive systems. We're sold on DC, and We don't agree with a lot of the different figures that are coming out as AC versus DC. Yes, most AC motors are a lot more, maybe 10% more efficient than DC, but the controllers are not. When you take them as a package, there's such a little difference, it's almost insignificant. However, when you start comparing prices, there's a significant difference between AC and DC systems, which is why we're building affordable cars. Our Geo Metros come with the brand new cars. They come with a 3-year bumper-to-bumper warranty, and we're selling them under $20,000. And we're making some money now. The car outside, which I welcome anybody who hasn't driven it to go ahead and drive it. It's an incredible little car. And they're really great runners.
Is it the same one you had in EPS 12? No, it's not.
There's one that EPS 12 had essentially the same system, but it had the Optima batteries and it had the 8-inch high torque 144 volt advanced DC motor. All the cars we're going from now on will have this new motor, the 12-inch one. And which, by the way, in the trucks, we're still doing the Ford Ranger truck with the same motor and the same controller, and all we do is turn the controller up. Not all the way, but we turn it up higher, and the truck is actually faster than the car. So another couple things I might want to touch on real briefly is we recently came out with some major advancements. We're still upgrading the vehicles constantly. One deal was, and I won't go into a lot of details, that it was with Acme batteries. This is a battery that's not a pie-in-the-sky battery. Acme has been licensed by Daimler-Benz, which is the abbreviated name. They're a joint venture between Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen. The battery was developed about 12 years ago for the aerospace industry. 8 years ago, Acme Electric Corporation was licensed to build them for aeronautical use. They've been building them, they've been selling them to Lockheed and Boeing. They're in all the F-16 fighters, they're in the stealth fighter, they're in all the brand new Boeing 777s. It's the state-of-the-art backup system for every application in aeronautics, and aerospace also. The only problem is that in the aerospace configuration, there are single cells, they're a rather large cell, and they're in a heavy metal case, because you can't have any onboard gasoline. So everybody's looked at them and basically blown them off, because in the heavy case, the energy to weight ratio is not there. So the other thing is you have to run an EV on them, especially if you're trying to run an AC system and have single cells and try to balance those and get them equalized, it's a nightmare. So they were basically discounted a long time ago. What happened was 2 years ago when we were trying to find Pikes Peak, we tried to get a hold of a set of these batteries just to run Pikes Peak with. They wouldn't sell them to us. They checked with Germany, and they couldn't even loan them to us. Well, at the same time, what they had done was develop and patent what's called their monoblock technology, which is now in production in a lead-acid configuration. And it's a unique kind of battery. It processes everything right internally, and it's a sealed battery. So in talking to the battery engineers 2 years ago, we said, you know, if you could ever take your NiCad fiber cells and put them in the monoblock, you'd solve all the problems that you ever had with the aerospace application, and it would be what everybody's looking for in a battery. And they kind of flipped out. They went ahead and applied in Germany to get licensed for the automotive industry, and just recently, the licensing came through. They went to EBS 12 and with this big announcement saying that, okay, we're licensed for the automotive industry with NiCad fiber batteries. And everybody said, so what? You can't put those in cars, you know, and they were blown off again. And we had met with them before, and they told us, well, we're licensed now, so we flipped out. To make a long story short, we are now licensed we're funding the merging of the two technologies, and with the exclusive licensing agent to sell the the batteries have been tested up to military specs. They've already got, in the aerospace configuration, which is the same cells we're going to put in the monoblock. They've got over 3,000 cells at 3,000 cycles at 100% VOD with less than 5% deterioration. When you take the energy density in the monoblock and put that into the weight of a vehicle like a Geo Metro with the same weight batteries we're using right now, you're looking at over 150 miles of range. Okay? And at 3,000 cycles, you're talking a 200,000 mile battery. The batteries are not affected by temperature. They operate in sub-zero temperatures with less than 5% loss of capacity. They're right now putting back over 50% of the energy in less than 5 minutes with the chargers that you're using. So it can be charged very quickly, and it's essentially a lifetime battery. If you look at, at 100% DOD with less deterioration than 5%, and 150 miles of range, if you only drive at 40 or 50% DOD, you're looking at least a 500,000-mile battery. So, and this is not pie in the sky, it's all proven technology. Both technologies are already in production. They tell us that we're going to have a working bench model in the monoblock within 5 months. We will have prototypes to be running a vehicle with within 9, and hopefully in 12 months they'll start production, and in 18 months they'll be gearing up for this large-scale production.